If you're interested in an ortho collab, reach out to Hello Listener. You guys would probably get along really well. You know, I've been on his chats and stuff, and he doesn't like, but when I try to talk with him, you know, talk shop, he wants to kind of like spurg out on, on his like whatever thing he gets obsessed about. So we'll see. I would love it, like tell him about me, tell him, check out my work. I'm not as, he's more like EDM and all that. And I do a lot of that as well. I've got a bunch of instruments. I'm going to be doing a bunch of, production. 90s, love the 90s. That's my son plays drums with me, and definitely like I would love to do a tour. I want to do more live events. I'd like to see way more live events. Debates are great. I'm tired of debates, to be honest. Though I'm like, do I want to say tired? I just think they're like art. They're their own art form, and I would love to see more like a circuit where it's like music night, debate night, movie night. There need to be if you talk about culture, DPH talked about this a little bit. I'm on this angle of like push the culture, like be culturally invested, develop artists, like understand something. This is something I talk about on another stream. I'm always trying to unpack this part, which is the money thing. Oh, dude, we got to look at some video. I'm always talking about this. I'm always pointing out, like, look, music sucks right now. Movies suck right now because it's all being invested in by who's got the money, who's spending the money, how are they spending it. Look at how many billions of dollars they spend on focus groups and, advertising, Super Bowl advertising, like go down the list. It's all being spent. It's its own sphere, I'm fine with that. You tell Tony I said, I know it does. I know it sucks. I love it. I don't care. I love his music. Doesn't even like Gospod. Gospod's great. But there needs to be like, when it comes to music and art, especially with artists like Tony, you got to be kind of like, get over it, dude. I did a tour for a few years, about 5 years. I did this tour called the Extreme Tour, and it was everybody. There was nothing that wasn't on the table, that wasn't on the stage. Hip hop, rap, jazz, folk, pop, R&B, rock, metal, punk, hardcore. And it didn't matter because we were all invested in the energy. It was evangelical, Protestant evangelical, so like all walks and backgrounds. We even had an Orthodox person on the tour with us at one point. Clearly got like an okay from their priest about it. We actually stayed at her house one night and went to Divine Liturgy. That was the second time I've been to Divine Liturgy, second or third, when I went at St. Seraphim of Sarov. You should pop in during shows over Friday night. Promo your channel a bit. DPH is right, though. Everyone has different tastes. Yeah, everyone has different tastes. And you gotta be able to, sacrifice your taste for the sake of what's more important is the value, is the culture. It's not going to connect with you maybe, but it is going to connect with somebody. For somebody, it is going to be the right thing that they need to hear at the right time. It's going to have the right energy. And by and large, it's not even about the taste. It's about giving people the opportunity to see an environment where people are just laying it out on the table and being vulnerable to each other. And it was really powerful. I think it's a really great model, to be honest. There's definitely some things that weren't ideal or whatever, but something I've been talking about for a long time is that they want to craft the narrative, craft the culture. We all kind of see that, right? Fake news. But it's not just the news, and it's not just the movies. It's the music, and I would say the music is the most overlooked thing because it's just music. You think, oh, it's just music, background music, you can ignore it. Or something, you know, but I think it's more there's more, something more significant about it. Something about movies or TV, there's a sense like I'm playing a trick on myself. You can tell yourself that. I'm playing a trick on myself. With music, it kind of gets inside a lot easier. It's chanting, right? And so what's the concept of chanting? Is that you're saying a thing that you want to be true, or you want to believe, or you do believe. And that's the point of the prayers, right? Because you want the prayers of the saints and of the apostles and of Christ to be, you know, indwell and incarnate inside of you, in your heart, right? And to, you know, open your nous to the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. But there's the anti to that. And that's the music industry.
You want to hear some inside baseball?
Sure.
Tim and I talked.
Oh, hell yeah.
And Tim is as different as me, as you. Tim wore a bow tie, white bucks, you know, blue jeans, suit jacket every day. And he was the editor of Rolling Stone for a long time. And then he became editor of Billboard, and he called me up and he said, I'm going to have to sign a deal with SoundScan. I said, so.
And he's Jim.
I didn't know
kind
what
of
that was. He goes, John, you don't understand the ramifications of signing a deal with SoundScan. I said, well, what are they? He goes, you'll be out of business. I go, why do you say that? He goes, because now, the way the Billboard charts work, is this getting too inside baseball?
No, not at all. No.
The way that the charts work is that if you get played in Indianapolis and you get played in New York, it counts as one play. New York counts as one play. Indianapolis counts as one play. A play's a play.
And just to say, this is at a time where, like, music industry obviously was way... I don't know if it was bigger. I mean, some say today it's actually bigger because there are actually more people listening to music. Taylor Swift is one of the richest people on the planet because of her music career. She's got 70-80%. She's been at 70% of the music markets, like, since the start of her career. And the question I'm always laying to people, when I'm always trying to, like, what makes them invest so much in it? Like, it's not worth nothing to them that they continue to spend money on these artists. But they've got their token breadwinners, you know, then they got their peons that they might drop a couple bucks on. But for the most part, that, you know, once they get a business plan, a business model that works for them, then they stick with that, and then they drive it into the ground until they cannot milk anything more out of it. And why do they do that? Why do they invest so much into music, into these artists, etc.? It's not because it doesn't do anything. It's not because of the love of the art. Otherwise, you know, they might come up with something a little better or whatever, you know. And maybe it is the case, you know, that music listeners and people that enjoy music, going to concerts, they love artists and they connect with a song or whatever. Maybe it is the case that those people have just such a narrow... Yeah, bagel labels. There you go. Bagel labels. You're right. How much of it is the nature versus nurture? Is like how much of it was like we are this way, therefore we like this stuff? I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with how women have a lot more power and influence and sway than they believe that they do, of course, you know, because all of these markets are driven by women, right? women are driving the music markets, they're driving the movie markets, they're driving the fashion markets, they're driving all the kind of novelty, vanity markets, worldwide, right? All the things that, as a Christian, we are to, in a sense, deny, right? In the vanity of the thing. We're not to pursue worldly pleasures or what have you. But I think that there's a way for artists to reapproach this, especially Orthodox Christians. I really am hoping to get not just Orthodox Christians, but Christians more broadly, conservative American Christians, Western thinking white Christian people, maybe even those not religiously invested or convicted, to understand that, like, you are formulating the values of your culture and your society through what you are investing. Like, that money comes from you to put towards this artist, that artist, whatever. When you don't have a consciousness about it, when you don't have a conscience about it, and you just then you're going to let things run amok. And that's what's happened. We let all these things run amok. We let these bagels run amok. And they drive us into the ground with their messaging and their deflecting and their smoke and mirrors and pursuing your pleasures. But there's a way. It really has to be a grassroots thing where people start to be more conscientious about the music that they are supporting, not just which artists to support, but also that they should support artists. They should support artists whose values that they do align with, and there's really only one community that does that, and that's country. That's country. All these other, which. I like, it's such a stupid thing to say. I like Hank Williams. Yeah, I do. I like Hank Williams. I like Johnny Cash. I do. I like Johnny Cash. I do. I like their songwriting. I like their storytelling, and I like their hooks. And but that's not that. I'm not a country artist. That's not what got me into playing music. That's not why I play music. I'm a rock musician. I like rock music. I like guitar tones. I like big thundering drums. I like all that kind of stuff. I am not gonna make country music anytime soon. I do believe that there is a market out there of people that do enjoy music like mine or like Tony's. That if what artists like us, what I try to explain to artists like Tony and myself, is that it's not particularly the music, quote unquote, that people are connecting with, although the music obviously is probably maybe 70, 80, 90% of the equation. The rest of it is social. It's how are you engaging with other people? Who is going to sing this song with you? Why would anybody bother to learn this song or to get psyched about this hook or this riff, etc.? It's a social thing. And social thing, so that's where it's like, it goes back to that whole diagram of the Andrew Breitbart quote of, well, politics is downstream from culture, right? Well, as the whole reason why I started this project, the Good Godfather Project, which go to my website, goodgodfather.co, sign up on my email list and stay in touch and be clued in on what we're doing, what we're about, and read some of the blogs that I got over there on my website, and you can read a little more about me. Culture is downstream from the spirit or spirituality, religion, theology, philosophy. Wet ass pussy is written because somebody is so low tier, theologically bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, that they can literally not think of anything outside of just these passion pleasures, right? That's all they can really wrestle with. That's all that matters to them. That's all life is for. So That's where musicians, it is on them. It's incumbent upon them. They can't wait for their audiences to catch up with them. The artist has the responsibility to cultivate the culture based on the spiritual values and principles. And they need to double down on it, and they need to stand strong on it. And they need to not waver. And they need to be intentional. And then the audience needs to intentionally and courageously respond and and be engaged and overcut. Like, you've got this mountain of the corporate bagel system that you're up against. That's not going to just happen on its own. It takes individuals with conviction, with mission, with vision, to actually take what God gave them, take the energy God gave them, and act and move, and don't back down. Never back down. Keep pushing forward. I've been doing this on 10 years. This is my 10th year doing this project, and we're at we got almost 250 subscribers on YouTube. It's been a slow going thing. I've had everything going against me. I've had Facebook accounts deleted. I've had ex Twitter accounts deleted, shadow banned, you name it. I've been through the ringer trying to just keep the pace going, keep the pace moving, and it's not been easy. As Tony will talk about on his streams. Obviously, it's not easy, but you can't complain about it. You gotta just understand what your purpose is. You gotta understand what the mission is God gave you, and you can't hand it over to anybody. This is yours. It's yours alone. It's mine alone. And I've got to take the gift that God gave me, and I've got to multiply it. I'm going to be held account for what I've been given. With the faith that I've been given, with the talents that I've been given, I have to multiply on it, and I can't let the cards that are stacked against me get in the way of delivering on what is my responsibility. So, something to think about. I'm really hoping this channel is all about nurturing that frame of mind. So, thanks for listening.
When SoundScan came in, they changed it so it's like the #1 record of the week. So, if you got to play in New York, that was worth 5 points. If you got to play in Indianapolis, that was worth 0.5 point.
Oh.
So what does that mean? That means that people who grew up in St. Louis and where rock took place, all of a sudden, where I got played all the time, the points didn't amount to shit.
Mm.
But what did? Urban stations. Urban stations played what? Rap. So, do you remember when all of a sudden rap music took over?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't because these guys were so great, and I'm not saying they were bad. I'm just saying that it was because of sound. My friend Tim knew this was going to happen. As soon as I signed this deal with SoundScan, and there was a magazine called Radio and Records at the time who was rivaling Billboard, and if Tim hadn't have bought SoundScan, Radio and Records would have bought them, which would have made them the premier record company because they were the most modern. And so SoundScan changed everything. So I'm sure that you remember that there was a time when you knew every song that was #1. Then all of a sudden you woke up one day and you didn't know how does this song become #1? But the way that it was before SoundScan, each song had to work its way up the charts. So if you had let's say 20 plays, I'm just throwing out low numbers, but if you had 20 plays, that got added to the 20 plays that you got the next week. So now you have 40 plays. So you might move up from 36 to 31. But Joe Rogan in Boston was hearing the fucking songs as they move up. Oh, I heard this new song. You talk to your friend. And they said, yeah, I heard that song. And then all of a sudden the song would build and build and build and build and build and build. And Michael Jackson would be number one or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And once SoundScan took over, if you run a rock band, the record companies said, well, fuck this. We're not even going to advertise in Indianapolis anymore. The biggest numbers are R&B stations, and they're playing rap, and that's what we're going to service those people. Because back then, there was payola and all that stuff going on.
Of course.
So there was like no money coming into Indianapolis all of a sudden, where there used to be. It was all going to New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, to all these R&B stations. And then, what was that thing called when you could like download records for nothing?
Napster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that started. And then that really put all rock guys out of business. If you check the Billboard charts right now, I bet you'd be hard-pressed to find 2 rock bands in the top 100.
Rock bands right now, just in general, are almost non-existent in terms of like new bands. It's really weird. There used to be so many rock bands, and rock and roll is still a very popular form of music when you listen to the older stuff.
That's why I've decided, I don't mean to plug myself, but they have been asking me, because I got tired of going on tour and being a cheerleader, which is what I was. Let's do a rounding hit of Small Town. I was born, and everybody'd stand up singing. I was playing to 20,000 people, and everybody was drunk, and I was just kind of the cheerleader, the human
for people's
jukebox.
good time.
Yeah, giving them the opportunity. And I just thought, I'm here to be a musician. This is not being a musician. This is being a fucking clown.
Different times I've been approached by elements of the U.S. government to be involved in things that were just way above my pay grade. I've never talked about them in any depth publicly, but I've had experiences where I would find myself in a room with people and think, why are they talking to me? And it was something out of like Eyes Wide Shut.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And what did they say? Like
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
No, because I haven't talked about it. I can certainly talk about it in sort of
Right.
like in a sort of a kind of a I was there kind of way.
Well, yeah.
But it's similar to when I talked about experiencing a shapeshifter on Howard Stern. It became this thing where I was hunted in airports. Please tell me the shapeshifter story. All I can say is I've experienced supernatural things, and I've experienced things where I've had elements of the U.S. government reach out to me because they somehow want to hook my influence, which is not that great, into whatever they're after. So having had personal experience of this, and of course there's lots of other insinuations, and I certainly would say, sitting here quite openly, it seems very, very obvious to me that there are elements in popular music where people have been compromised knowingly because they were offered kind of a Faustian bargain.
Right.
Pick door number 1 and we're going to push you to the moon.
Right.
Because in music, and this is certainly my area of expertise, there are people who are protected and they get every benefit of that protection. And I know it because I know the game, because I've lived it. And there are other people where they decide to press a button and throw them off the ship.
Right.
Now, it might be because they're engaging in bad behavior, and we talked a little bit about that. But in other cases, I think just because they won't do the bidding that people want them to do.
So just to demonstrate like how much work is being done to shape the cultural landscape, and this was the agenda from day one with this project, to take a very John Lydon approach to music and to culture, and to say, no, dude, we're not here to be a part of the system.